excited to see how this goes. Uh, I like previously just put like a little bit of information into Ameliorate about ranked choice voting, but I didn't really like look at the arguments for and against. There was welcome Carl, welcome.
I'm gonna grab coffee and have a few lunch items. I'll be back in like 5-ish minutes. Sorry.
Sure.
Okay. There's like a Ncase article. Have you heard of Ncase? Let's see what. Let me actually find the link. There's a good article that like compares a bunch of um common, well, I don't know about common, but voting options. And it's like interactive. Here, I'll actually just put it in the should I put it in the general chat? Is there a thread for the event?
Well, we don't have one for the event yet. It might be good to make
All
one.
right. I'll just say thread for ranked choice voting. I don't remember where I stumbled on this, but this is a really cool interactive article that you can like for each voting system like drag around kind of like where the candidates lie relative to the support um of the masses, and you can see how each voting system like works differently with the same votes. It's pretty cool. But this is like the only thing I've really um looked at for when I was diagramming my thing. And I don't think it covers all the a lot of the different arguments that are probably made.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and share what I've been monkeying around with. I just used Miro because it's the thing I use at my job. So it had less of a learning curve for me. I don't know if I'd even suggest it for this. But that's where I'm at. Let me put for now I'm also just for the moment, I'm gonna probably populate in here until we. So here is your article to build a better ballot.
Oh, that's cool.
And then here's the article I was working on. It was just the first con that I thought had some info. So the Heritage Foundation, and I think when I've been doing this, I mean, I looked at some pro articles and stuff like that, but then I think what makes a deeper and understanding for me, I have a theory that going against my bias is a better place to start.
Like people are strong opponents, or like people
yeah. If I could find a well-worded article, which actually Heritage Foundation is not great for that, then I think it kind of opens up the debate in my mind, as opposed to if I'm because someone I agree with, it's just a whole bunch of points, and then I have to fit the points from the con articles into it. Anyway, so that's a theory that I'm playing with. So about as far as I got was, the first maybe page or two of this article. But I don't know, and we don't have any like pre-planned process, so we probably could chat about process for a while and see if we even agree or want to go down different paths and just be doing it in the same space or whatever. So Joel's kind of mentioned what he's doing. So this is where I am. I'm taking the Heritage Foundation's one and then putting it into a standard argument tree, which will eventually be pros and cons. But right now they're all pros. And right now, It's a mind map, and I haven't quite figured out how Miro's mind maps work. Like, how do I change the line color? I thought I could. So it may take me a while to. Maybe that's
Sure,
not an
you
option on
definitely
mind
can.
maps. I may have to change it to a standard diagram and not use mind maps. Because they have special coding around mind maps. Anyways, so Carl, do you have what's your thoughts?
Yeah, sorry I missed some of the earlier stuff. Am I able to present or
Should be
how
able to.
does um share screen? Okay. I don't know if that was there before or not. Let me well, let's see. I guess I have a few thoughts. One is that I'm interested here for a couple things. One is I'm just curious, both your thoughts just around the whole space, like what works, what doesn't work of fact checking or mapping based on sources. Specifically, some things that are on the top of my mind are the truth versus relevance concept. So, like, does a argument or a thing that's attached to another thing, is it talking about whether this thing's true or false, or is it talking about, well, yeah, that may be true, but it doesn't apply here, and here's why? Because you guys can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
So I've been kind of wanting to look into this. So I was kind of excited when you asked about a tool. And so I spent the last few nights kind of um, putting a little prototype together. And it's using what I'll call Howju's model, which maybe I don't think I've talked a ton about, so like maybe it doesn't mean a lot. But the idea is that there's propositions, which are like standalone claims from a couple of years ago. Joel, I don't know if you were in those conversations or caught up in them at all, but it's
Yeah.
like it's the claim. And
Mhm.
then there's justifications, which can talk about the truth of a claim or proposition. I'll call them by the words I use. And these can have two bases. Like basically, like there's two types of support for a justification. There's either an argument, which is one or more propositions, or there's a media excerpt. So like evidence, you can think of it. So like this one is a single, this is a single piece of this is a single proposition that's basically in support of the truth of this final thing. Um, and you can see like this, and then this one is evidence. So like it's got a quotation, it's got a link here. Obviously, you can tell this is very prototypey. I'm using a tool
Mhm.
called, or like a library called Cytoscape, which
Mhm.
isn't very good at using custom layouts or custom stuff. Like you can only really show text by default, like this one. So
Hmm.
what I've done here is I've like hidden the default view and like I've overridden it with a custom HTML view. This is very hacky, but
Mm.
this one's evidence. Uh, and you can see that since this arrow points well, I should, maybe you can't see, but the idea is that since this arrow points at the proposition itself, it's talking about the truth or falsehood of that proposition. But if I create a new node and like, say like some counter argument, sorry, layout is also not lovely. I got lucky and finally found a layout that kind of works, but still mucks around a bit. Let's say this counter argument is about relevance. So if I drop on this tiny little sliver of space that's not the proposition, but like the
Mhm.
actual justification like box. So now you see that this red arrow points at the outer box. So, and I'm not happy with this. Like it's not a great, layout. Um, but that's currently how I'm doing relevance in this view.
Mm.
Uh, I'm not going to go to Howju itself, like, but Howju, the Howju has a non-mapping view. It's like a single container with like pros and cons on left and right. And the way I handle counters in that view is that underneath the justification, I have kind of like a little bit like a Reddit style threaded. Well, it's not really Reddit style because they go back and forth, but like it's kind of like a commenting back and forth, or like it's almost like a back and forth dialogue thread. And I like that view better. But anyway, so the two things I'm kind of curious about are that one, how people are going to handle relevance versus truth, and then so I here I've taken out a summary like voters and state legislators should oppose ranked choice voting. That's in my opinion a summary of somewhere he says that, like maybe it's down here. I kind of want to do this concept called appearances, where we say a a um a proposition which we're probably interested in critiquing. That's probably why appearances are most interesting, quote unquote, appears somewhere in the text. Like this one, let me search for because I'm pretty sure. Yeah, here we go. So like this was the text I was looking at when I created that proposition, and I would like to, and Howju does kind of support this currently. This prototype doesn't yet. I would like there to be like a little, I don't know what it would be, some sort of icon on this proposition that if you click on it, it like maybe brings up a view of multiple appearances, or maybe it just supports one appearance at a time, and it takes you here and it shows you, oh, this is where it appears in the source. So I do support highlighting evidence. So like if you notice when I clicked on this yellow thing over here, this yellow box appeared over on the right around the thing. So I'm trying to connect, if I click on different ones, they show up in the different place, which is kind of fun and cool. Does it work the other way? It doesn't work the other way. I don't think I have to go the other way, where if you select here, sort of highlight, maybe like make it bounce, or, highlight for a second, this thing to let you know, oh, that's the one you just clicked on, and maybe like scroll you to it. Sorry, but back to appearances, like I'd really like to see, show that a proposition appears here. And the reason I'm really curious or interested in that is that I would like someone, let's say someone who's not me comes this later, but they're somehow like loading in my map. And let's say I've put in a bunch of con justifications, like arguments against this thing. I'd like it to show here, like maybe instead of yellow, like a red highlight, like, hey, based upon the available evidence, this is bad, or this is not true. And there's kind of a two-step analysis here. Like the first question is, does someone agree that the proposition I created appears here? That's one type of argument, which Howju does not support yet. I wanted to, and this tool definitely doesn't support. So that's the first question. Like, is my proposition, voters and state legislators should oppose ranked choice voting, is that a good paraphrase basically of this? I think it is, but I don't know, maybe someone would see it differently. If it's a good paraphrase, then is the paraphrase true? Like, is the proposition true? And that comes down to the justifications. I'd like to show people in context, like some summary, like the summary could be a single score or a single value, a single color initially. Of course, you can imagine it would be nice if the like analysis were more complicated, like, I mean, this is obviously still getting into like us versus them, or like, either or thinking, but conservatives tend to agree with this, but liberals don't, or both conservatives and liberals agree with this, or, and it would be nice to get even more nuance than liberal conservative, but that's like an easy first step of trying to encompass more than one viewpoint. So anyway, I think that covers my initial thoughts here. I'm really curious about, whatever we would call quote unquote appearances. Like we might call them like, I had a word for this. I don't know where that sheet of paper went. Oh yeah, like situated claims might be another way to talk about that. It's like a claim that, supposedly appears in in an actual place, and then also the relevance thing, how people are going to show relevance. Because what I'd kind of like, sorry, I'll wrap up here quickly, is I'd kind of like it if this thing were up here, and if this arrow pointed at the arrow, which is something Cytoscape doesn't support directly. Like I think the term of art here is hypergraphs, or like edges point to edges or something like that. I might look into faking it by putting like a little fake node here.
Auto generate a node in between. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I don't know. What are people's thoughts on those things and all that?
Let me unless you're really burning to.
Oh, go ahead.
First of all, I guess I would like to spend this time mostly focusing on creating a debate map rather than creating an argument tree, rather than creating an argument tree tool, although we could do both, and that's my focus. So this is all fascinating, but it could also take all the time. Now, of course, if we don't know how we're going to do it, then we can't do it. So that's my first thought. feedback on all of what you said. There was a lot in there that was interesting. So for the relevance and confidence, I think building out these tools, my focus has been keep things as simple and as conceptually a limited number of concepts as possible. And only expand them when absolutely necessary and when you've got that core done. So like in Reason Tracker, there's only the concept. Well, the base concept is a claim. Now, a claim can be evidence, can be propositions, can be all that other stuff. So it's just a string of text. And whether it's evidence or whether it's and I'm just using the term claim, there might be a better word for that. It's really more like statement. But in evidence, when you put in evidence, that's a claim of evidence, really. It's not absolutely true. So it's just claims, and then the root case, I think, is claims and then arrows that are pro and con. And if they're pro or con, it's not absolutely necessary to specify whether it's importance or whether it's relevance or truthfulness. I mean, that's additional information that's helpful. But you know, even that is kind of a conceptual thing that the viewer needs to understand. So they can, when they read it, they can kind of understand that, or you can call it out. So the whole thing of like, is this, I mean, having a node in there function differently, whether it's a claim, whether it's evidential or proposition, I think is a kind of a complexity in your architecture. I would first have a node that points to a text in the original document, and you can click that regardless of what type it is, and then you can designate that type of node as either proposition or evidence, or other stuff, and then have different colors and stuff like that based on that. But I wouldn't have a separate piece of code for it sounds like you have, because you say, well, this linking back and forth only works with evidence but not with the other one. So I mean, that's just my thought about like code architecture.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to unpack that. But I agree. I'm totally on board with let's do a mapping exercise. And because what I would like to see out of that is like what do we run up against? Like what sorts of features do we need and all that. The one thing I would say in response to what you said though is around whether relevance versus truth needs to be tracked, particularly if I understood you correctly. And my thoughts on that are for canonicality, it does matter because if like let's say this map, is one of many maps. And so like this proposition is being explored elsewhere, or we're discovering that it's like, semantically equivalent with a proposition that's on some other map. This evidence is I must not say relevant. This evidence matters, or like this justification matters for anywhere this proposition appears. And that which is relevant to canonicality, right? Because someone else is mapping this and this is the same thing. You want to see their justifications too. Whereas this counter argument only matters where this particular justification appears. So like this thing, attacking that thing, or like going against that thing. So that's my one thought.
We're in the canonical debate lab.
Huh?
But I know we're in the canonical debate lab, but I would say canonicality is too large of a topic to tackle at this point. And I would like to do maps without even considering it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good limiting idea. And I totally agree with you.
That is where we go to die.
Yeah.
No, it's that's something that we'll need to tackle at some point. And you're right. I would have to think about whether that's a requirement for canonicality, but I wouldn't be surprised if you were right on that. So yeah, I guess the goal right now would be to just kind of like get some phrases together and point to what phrases point to other phrases, and then the next step would be, are they pros and cons, and then the next step is truth and relevance, and then after that, or at some point in there, it might be, well, is this evidence or is this proposition or is this? And I think also Joel's system might be using proposition different than you're saying, Carl, because or proposal and proposition, those are two different things, right?
So, yeah.
Yeah, so no, y'all are using two different terms. I just got confused for a second there, so not to worry about Joe,
Yeah,
any thoughts?
I think I definitely see value in the distinction between relevance and truth, especially in the canonical example, which I didn't think of, just generally, so for like precision of communication, I guess. But my, I guess like I would be curious to do more mapping and then like see, like feel the impact of not being able to communicate that. My system currently does, like I just have support or critique. Technically, there are edges that you can support or critique versus like the node itself that you can support or critique. So you could like use that for relevance versus truth kind of thing. But um, in my usage so far, my argument trees have been very simple. And so I've pretty much just been like arguing or supporting and critiquing nodes, and they don't get very like deep because I guess like I have this like base map of like the structure of a problem or a solution, and then you can add arguments anywhere in there. And so like I've just found that the arguments that I've been scoping to any of these spots haven't been too intense, where like uh maybe there would be like multiple of them throughout, um where in just like a argument tree that doesn't have the base problem structure, maybe that would have them all kind of like in one argument tree, and therefore more nesting. Uh, so what am I saying? I don't know. I mean, I see the value of relevance and truth, but in my system, it doesn't currently support it, and I'd be curious to see like the
And just to
feeling of
make sure I'm
usage.
clear, I do see value in it. It's just the order of operations on when you reify that. I think there's some value without it, and then more value with it. And reason score does have that reason tracker, whatever I'm calling it this week. It's all about branding. You don't actually have to provide value as long as you have a really good brand, right? That was sarcasm, by the way.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Nike brand. But yeah, do you be up
Yeah.
for like I'd be up for like you driving the Miro based approach? Because the nice thing about Miro is that like anything can happen. Like you
Yeah.
could make it. Yeah. So and then we can just kind of discuss as we go, maybe, or how do people feel about that?
I would be down for basically like, so maybe Bentley can share and we can like make this one argument map here, and then like as we're adding stuff here, I would also just like add on my own
Right.
topic.
Right.
But it would be nice to follow one like set of arguments, I guess, or like so we're mapping the same thing in different ways.
Yep. I'm going to go ahead and share this link. I don't know how, if a whole bunch of, if it asks you to like make a paying account, I guess there's no way to do that without.
I think if you have a paying account, then other people don't even have to log in for like there's a feature at least where you can like open it to random people.
Yeah, so
And
that should be that. So let me know if you have a problem in case you want to look at it, or actually like y'all can start mapping, copying stuff.
Where did the link go? Did it go to our emails or
It is
Discord.
in
Oh, it's in.
the Discord under a thread that Joel made so that we're not like alerting everyone. I could put it in the Zoom as well.
oh I think I found it. Thanks.
Yeah, Joel's in here. I can see him wiggling around.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, so I'm just kind of like, unfortunately, you have to kind of like, look at that. You have to like copy these out because there's not a conversion. It
Wait,
might take a while to figure it out, but
are you intentionally making like another map separate from the top one?
yeah, I can't figure out how to change the line color on that's a mind map up there. So I'm just trying to duplicate
Oh,
an actual regular. So I don't know if you want to help me copy and paste some of the text down there. Because you're
oh
able
wait.
to change the node color. Oh,
Oh,
which
it changes both like the line and the
I guess that's not bad. And even if we used reason tracker colors, so purple would be pro and orange would be con for reason tracker colors. So all these would be pro. Um,
hmm, I guess you can't select the edge separately from like the node. Yeah.
uh, which I wasn't aware was a limitation when I hadn't played with it enough when I started this.
Hmm.
Where's the paste style? Can you paste styles? And their feature sets do
Is it the
not.
brush in the toolbar on the right? Like,
Well, that's
oh wait,
to
it's just general styles. Okay, never mind.
yeah. It's
Usually it's like
kind
a
of it's
paintbrush
kind of
to
a brand styling thing, yeah. Um,
oh, copy style. If you go into the three more dots, the second from the top, and then maybe you can paste
yeah, I
it.
got that. For some reason, the paste style didn't seem to be there, but maybe it didn't copy correctly.
I also don't see it.
Disenfranchised voters, ballots do not. That's a purple one as well. Okay, so yeah, right now I'm still. I've only put in his the arguments from this one article. And maybe we could also kind of chat about some of my challenges is with this article and probably a lot of sources. Their language is very
Biased or strong emotional.
yeah, all of that. It's like, and also I'm not quite sure. Like they say, oh, you will not believe what reformers have devised to tinker and manipulate our elections. Oh, like that's not manipulative language.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
kind of the kettle calling the stove black there.
uh,
Um,
Yeah, it reminds me of something else I'm really interested in is like a tool's ability to handle steel manning. I don't know what features, are
yeah, and
necessary.
then yeah, so at some point I would want to rephrase. So like, and Society Library did a really good job of this. Jamie does of like, here's the original quote. Here's how we rephrased it. So actually, you have this phrase quote. They actually have multiple incoming quotes. So like, even in this one article, they say the same thing 4 or 5 different ways. We're translating it to this, so you can check the provenance all the way back, and then yeah. So like they say, one of their hands, they say ranked choice voting is a scheme to disconnect election issues and allow candidates with marginal support for voters to win. Oh, and by the way, I have links between, well, I guess I have a link from here. So if you click on that link in Miro, if you click on the mind map link button, it'll take you to where it is in the document. So that was kind of a hacky way to do it. And I
hmm.
could probably link backwards, although there's a problem where it's to a box. And if it splits among multiple rows, you need 2 boxes or so. There's not a way to have it follow the text at the moment.
I think
Hmm.
CD or I think Society Libraries approaches like a good exploration of the UX. But one of the things that I think Society Library is going to struggle with, or maybe it's just not their use case, is like, oh shoot, I had a word for this, but oh sorry, they're very editorial, is what I mean to say. You've got Jamie who runs everything, and then you have the people who work for Jamie, and it's all based highly upon trust, right? So I mean, no one does anything with Society Library that Jamie doesn't, approve
Okay.
of, which is good for
Hmm.
their output. But I think you all know, and I think I'm not the only one here. We're all interested, or many of us are interested in a tool that potentially could be like Wikipedia or like Reddit in the sense that it's open for participation, as long as you're a good faith actor and you don't, get banned or whatever, deprioritized, demonetized. That's not the right word. I'm not interested in monetizing. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
sorry,
So
so
I'm not
that's
kind
one of
of
the things that
shy.
I'm curious about is how do they handle, oh, I think that this should be phrased this way, or I don't agree that that is a correct appearance of it because it's worded differently. You know what I mean? Like Society Library is kind of sidestepping those nuanced issues with that, what I'm calling appearances, because they're editorializing. Like they make a decision and then they're done.
Mhm.
Well, there's a bit of a feedback loop. I mean, in theory, they make a decision, they publish it, and then they take feedback, and then they choose whether or not to incorporate that feedback.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry, I didn't mean to
and
say
that's the
that they
same
never,
thing.
you know
Yeah,
what I
and
mean?
that's
Like
yeah,
it's not user generated content.
right. And I am also following that same philosophy for now, just because the step between creating something that expresses the idea well and making it multi-user is a function step difficulty. I guess I'm doing agile software development. So picking battles like we said before, that one is like the more I work on it, the further that one gets away because of the challenges. And right now, I don't even know how to do it myself, much less make a system to where when people try and do it, they don't mess everything up. So mine's going to be curated for the short term. Eventually, it'd be nice to not do that, but I think only after years of providing curated data. And my idea is to create a video. So mine won't even be a UI that people have access to. I mean, I might give them access. Create a video, ask for feedback, take the feedback, incorporate it in the video, and then post another video and do. So every topic will have a series of 4 or 5 videos until the feedback kind of dries up. And so that won't, yeah, there will be problems with trust. Although if I do a good job and like Society Library, if you can express the both sides thoughts better than they can, then you should have trust. Of course, she doesn't have a scoring methodology in her system at all, so she's making no judgment. So it's even easier for her to say, we have your claim in here. It just may be 20 steps down and 9,000 claims,
Mhm.
but it's there.
Mhm.
I have the additional thing that I'm going to be putting a number on it. And then they're going to argue with the number. I'm going to say, well, provide some evidence and show me where to put it if you want to change the score. So I'm going to get even more vitriol, I think.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, that
yeah,
all makes
so eventually having a system to where people can, an interactive system would be helpful, but that's not a priority for me at the moment.
sense.
But I know everyone else except for Jamie is doing, that's their priority. That's all you guys priority. All use guys. So that's good.
Well, I'm also not actually like I'm assuming good faith in my tool, and you like my tool is not curated, but like currently only the creator can edit the topic, or they can give like permissions. But the expectation, I guess, is like this is my tool is currently used for like small groups that are that I mean, maybe you don't know each other, I guess, but the assumption is good faith, basically. So I don't have features to handle.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's another kind of great way to handle it is, yeah, small group tool.
That's kind of the Kialo. It's a little bit like the Kialo, I think.
yeah, it's basically the Kialo strategy, except my tool doesn't have like suggestions. Like you can add a comment on anyone's topic, but you can't suggest a change. Like you can't like add a con and that come up as a suggested thing. But I mean, I really do want to add that. I just haven't yet. So you literally have to like put it in a comment and say like, oh, I think you should put a support here. And yeah.
Yeah,
So
this
let
is
me get
great
you guys.
conversation. Sorry, I just want to say real quick. I agree with all the points, and I agree this is all about trade-offs and where to focus. The one like mini point I wanted to make is that it's not just bad faith. Like there's bad faith people, but there's also people who are acting in good faith who just very much disagree. You know, like they want to word it differently or they want to focus on something different. We don't have to go into that necessarily, but I just want to
Hmm.
point out that it's not just good faith versus bad faith. It's also people who are good faith, but I mean, you may think their good faith is bad, but they mean well. They just see the world differently. And that I'm interested in sort of like identifying and pushing out the bad faith people because, you know, like that's just never going to work.
Hmm.
It's also hard to figure out who those people are. but accommodating the just diverse viewpoints of the people who are in fact good faith participants.
Hmm.
What I'm also finding in that area is that I have the additional problem where I've chosen to take the scoring, like I've taken that on as a requirement and most everyone else isn't. Um, so I'm having a problem where you put the argument and how you phrase it, or at least how you break it apart into sub-arguments, affects the scoring.
Mm.
And so I don't even know how to do that myself, much less writing up advice for a person to do it. So right now, my system's in its core design is still too complicated for anyone to use
But
at the moment, just
I
because
would,
the idea is so new.
I feel like the systems that don't like focus on scoring or score based on like where in the tree they are, like I feel like they still have that problem where, if Jamie makes a map with like 9,000 arguments and there's like 10 nodes in the root level, anything that's below the root level is just like not getting
Right.
it's going to be harder to be seen. And so like you have to put the stuff on at the top that you want to be like, there's a lot of bias there, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
But in my case, the score will be
the score will
wrong
be
if you
affected
put
by
it there.
Yeah.
So it's doubly bad.
Right. Right.
But yeah, we all have that problem. It's just acutely noticeable. So I think anyone that tried to use my system, even if I designed it well, because I don't know how to describe it yet, would get even more frustrated. So I get your opinion on something as far as like mapping this article. Like they say ranked choice voting is a scheme. Now that could be a claim, unless they're British, in which case when they say scheme, they just mean plan. Because
Well,
American scheme is a negative term, and British, it's called government schemes, is a proposal. I don't think they're
what
British.
does the claim mean though? Like if they're not British, then the claim is just like they're bad faith or like they're doing something malicious.
Yeah, right. That the person doing this is malicious intent. And my opinion is debating people's intents provides very little value in a debate. Um,
Yeah, I
so
think
it's a waste of time.
I think generally intent matters a lot to me, but not in this. Like when we're mapping stuff, I feel like intent doesn't matter, or like, yeah, it's just like we're
It's less
mapping the
valuable.
specific arguments
Yeah.
and
I'm trying to how to explain that to people, and I'm thinking of like something to the effect of like, regardless of the original creator's intent, like we use their intent as a well, can't use this term with the average person, but it's a heuristic on how much we should investigate this issue. Because they could have bad intent and accidentally make something useful, or they could have good intent and accidentally make something bad. So their intent doesn't actually have anything to do with the final truth value, but it tells us just because it looks good, if we think they had bad intents, we need to investigate it more. But if we're doing this debate map, we've committed a full investigation. So their intent doesn't actually matter. But I'm not sure if that
right.
explanation
Well,
makes.
like putting into a structure, I feel like is an attempt to try and remove some bias. Like, we're trying to build this like factual thing, or not factual, but something that uh
It's more
could be
rationally evidence-based, well, however
right.
you want to say that. Concrete.
Uh, yeah, so I don't know.
Anyway, so y'all are okay with probably leaving that out, then y'all, that doesn't.
Yeah, I guess I would leave it out in mine. It's a
Well, in this
scheme.
particular instance, I think given the context to disconnect elections from issues, I mean that's negative. So I think we can tell that this one is negative in intent. Although I hear what you're saying that you don't want to get yourself involved in intent, and I'm trying to pull apart my own thoughts about it because to me intent is so important. Like if I'm reading something I'm trying to understand what is the author trying to tell me? And so I have to know their intent and I have to infer their intent.
Well,
But
okay, but
I don't want to derail the conversation. But
this author is claiming that the intent of the person that created the policy was
oh,
negative.
I see. Not the intent of the author, but the intent of the person that all of us are talking about. Right?
Yeah. So their claim about the intent of the original author of the policy is inconsequential to whether it's a good or bad policy if we're going to investigate whether it's a good or bad policy and look at everything.
Yeah.
Is what I want to tell people.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I
I
agree.
think a lot of
It's not,
people, the intuition is though, no, if that's an evil person that made this policy, that's an important claim about whether the policy is good or bad. But I'm saying yes, and if as long as you're not doing a full analysis of the policy. But if you are doing a full analysis of policy, it doesn't matter what the intent of the writer of the policy is, because they could, you know, the question
yeah,
is, did they end up being it? But then if you
yeah.
know
Thank you
someone
for
has a bad
explaining.
intent, you
I
should
totally agree with
investigate it.
I totally agree with you guys now. Now I understand. Yeah, thanks for explaining that. I can see how it'd be useful in some cases to talk about the intent of other people, but to me, that's like a tertiary sort of use case, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of a low value spending of time, I think.
We
Most
get
of
Stephen or Steve, I forget. It's Steve, right?
okay. And I was having lines between these things so you could find them in the document more easily, although lines are a little tricky. But then it just got so messy that
Hmm.
I think having the links probably helps.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyways, so and this is also the part where I'm like, oh, I need to just like hire someone to do it because it's so irritating to do.
Mm.
Uh so like in the article they talk, here's how it works, right?
Oh, wait,
Um
sorry, I have one point to make. Sorry, I know that you're doing solo mapping, but let's say someone wanted to include the ranked choice voting as a scheme. It would be a relevance argument to say you could argue say, well, whether or not it's it was intended to be a scheme, that's irrelevant for whether it works well in practice. Sorry, so I just want to point out that that's a potential use case for relevance.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And you might even have a blanket statement that whether it works or not, the actual intent of the person is usually not very relevant at all. And if you're doing a scoring, give that a low impact.
Hmm.
So like I was going through the debate, I'm sorry, through this article, and I just made some comments on the side of the doc. Like this is an accurate, they do a fairly good job of accurately describing how ranked choice voting works, and they don't seem to like make any claims about it. Well, any important claims. I mean, they're making claims about how it works, but no one disagrees on those claims. So I didn't think that required any doing. They have this last little like paragraph, which is very, this is their language is very needlessly emotional. Well,
Mm.
now that Steve's on here, or Steven's on here, I kind of it's properly rhetorical and useful in that way. It's not helpful in our in what I'm trying to accomplish.
Wait, so in
Actually
rank
not.
choice, I I guess I wasn't aware. Like in ranked choice, you're actually required to vote for all of them. Is that right?
No, you're not actually required to. And I mean, some case that's an option for the designers of the voting system.
I see. So in this case, the assumption is that it is required because the candidate, because this voter's ballot has his strong political objections for this person that he voted for.
Well, so they're actually saying one of the problems in ranked choice voting is that you don't have to rank them all, and if you don't, your vote is thrown out.
I want to capture all these because that one, the counter argument is, well, you don't have to vote, period. So if you choose not to vote for candidates, that's your choice.
Yeah, this gets into the core of the issue and where my brain started breaking. So we
Okay.
could probably dive into it.
Why not capture this one? Well, yeah, do
It's
we want to
kind of,
Yeah,
capture?
yeah.
I started capturing it.
Can you
Let's
see
look at
me?
what I got.
Or Can you see me in your doc or not? I can't.
uh,
I can just look, but I can't touch anything. Do you see
You
my
should be
mouse
able to
moving
edit.
around?
I think I gave, if you have the
I
link.
I was editing.
My mouse is right there with Bentley, like, and
Oh
you're
no,
not
you don't
seeing
have.
it.
Oh no, I'm on it. You see mine.
You have a paid account, Joe?
I do.
Oh, that's what it is. I'm just a commenter. You can't see me. Yeah,
But you
you're
you can become
so
a
Bentley's the board
editor.
owner, Joel's an editor, and I'm a commenter,
You
which is
know,
fine. I don't want to
maybe
make edits, so you
maybe
can't.
someone can be an editor if they have a paid account on someone else's paid account. But
Yeah.
unless I pay for Carl, he can't edit.
No. Because I use Miro. The reason I pay for Miro is like I run Discord sessions for my app,
Oh, so you have lots
and
of people.
like I have people in there that don't need an account even that they can edit it. But you might need to just change the settings of the like on the upper right if there's a share button. Uh, if you click
Well, no,
that.
I mean the y'all both use the same link. Um,
Well, but I had to create an account, so that might have
anyone
been an
with the link.
issue.
Why does it say commenter? I had that
Oh yeah.
editor. It
I
must
don't
be
know how I got edit access honestly, but maybe I clicked
somehow.
it before
There
you
you go, Carl.
changed it or
Okay.
Yeah,
something.
let me read that. Thank you.
Yeah, so feel free to either put notes on here or create another map or whatever you want. I find it annoying, but that's what working with people is about, being annoying.
Where are you in the this? Where were you pointing out in this article that the
Oh,
description
so
is?
actually no, I didn't. I mean, I was the discussion that Carl brought up. I didn't find it in the article. So, um, let's see.
Where they defined what the system was? We were saying that that was not claims because they were nobody disagreed. Where were you looking
Oh,
for
so
that?
that was yeah, that was the section. So I have a little an accurate description of the process here.
Oh, I see. I see.
So that's what I was just making my little side notes. And so
I see. I see.
that's how the thing works.
So can
And
we?
then below it says, in the end, a voter's ballot might wind up being cast for the candidate he ranked far below his first choice. I guess that's a different claim than what Carl was talking about, though. But they do make that argument. They do argue about it's a false majority, I think is the terminology that they use. Because it's not, because technically you don't have a greater than 50% from the people that participated in the election. Because some of the votes were thrown out because they did not rank the last two candidates, or the last, however many candidates are in the last simulated voting. If you didn't rank any of those candidates, then your vote is thrown out. So technically, it's not a real majority. But like
Hmm.
Carl was saying, if you actually did 3 recounts and the person decided not, that's the same as them deciding not to vote in the last recount. It's not, so you still get a majority of the people that participated in that recount. But then once again, you say if you really had 3 recounts, the person may have made a different decision. Uh, oh, and
Is that
something else
true? If there'd
to
been
note.
three recounts, the person would have made a different decision.
So if it's like, oh, we had to go out and vote this week, and then now it's these 3 people instead of 4 people. So we're gonna vote again. Now it's down to 2 people. That person that didn't rank either of those 2 people, now that he knows it's down to those 2 people and we haven't done it,
Oh,
he
yes,
may have
yes.
They're
They
to
might have
vote.
chosen to have voted, but I was assuming they ranked everyone. In that case, I think it's the same.
Well, so they're competing, they're opposing these 2 election uh options. And actually I didn't realize at the end of the thing they are actually suggesting that you have, if someone doesn't get, I don't know if they say this. Basically, they're saying you should have runoff elections and make everyone go out to the polls 3 or 4 times.
Oh, that is ridiculous.
So that's what they're.
well, because if if you expect like you should be able to know from the outset what should happen when both of the people I voted for are out. And if you don't vote, you know that when they're both out that your vote's not going to do anything. And so if you want your vote to do something, that's when you're supposed to rank all of the candidates, I guess.
Exactly. I'd rather rank everyone once in one ballot sitting than go back and vote multiple times. This is a perfect argument for that little tool I made, sophistry, because this is a specious argument.
Specious? Or,
Yeah.
wait, what does that mean?
Oh, like made in bad. Oh, Steven's gonna. I'm embarrassed to say this in front of Steven because he probably knows it better than I. It's like made in bad faith, like like a made to win a point, but not like true, like ultimately true. I should look it up. If you look at it,
Superficially plausible, but actually wrong is what
exactly.
The,
Google's.
That's
the
right.
traditional specious argument would be that the software program you're using, which I think is fascinating, by the way, I've never seen it before. Miro, is that what it's called?
Yep.
So Miro keeps sharks away because I don't see any sharks in the chat.
Okay.
So it's really good at what it does, but it also keeps sharks at bay because I don't see any. That's a specious argument.
I see. I see.
But these, I feel like I haven't read this article, but what I've read on the screen share from Bentley, it seems like they're not just assuming the United States. So it could be in any number of electoral systems where runoffs can get really tiring, like the French system, for example.
Yeah. Now he's the author of this was originally German, but he's been at an American college and I think teaches also. So
Wait, why would that be the case? Because there's so many people to vote on, or
Well, you have rules about what constitutes a majority, and if no one gets a majority, you take the top two, and then you have another election, another vote in a week or 2 weeks or something like that. I forget the rules,
Oh,
but that's what like Macron was going through just recently. It's still not over.
wouldn't that be an argument for ranked choice voting because it would speed up that process?
I think the argument for yeah, but I don't know if a fast process would jive with a lot of defenses of democracy. So it might not be an argument we'd want to make strategically, but I think that these people are saying it's better. It's a much more democratic. I mean, I have to read it more carefully. I just kind of blazed through it while it was on the screen there. But the better argument would be if you get a better sense of what people really want if they leave their house and go off and vote for somebody instead of, and if they like stay home, that tells you something too. Like if the number goes down. So you have like weird, all kinds of weird ways to analyze election data.
yeah,
But that's what they seem to be saying.
and reading through these arguments made me, it's always humbling, even if I mean, this article is written in a very kind of biased and flamboyant way,
Yeah.
rhetorical way. So it was a pain to read, but it's always very humbling when you go, oh, I didn't really think of the impact. Like I knew that there were some situations in ranked choice voting where things would get a little wonky. I mean, like one of the great videos goes through all of them and says, it's actually been kind of proven within a certain amount of limited set of requirements, there is no perfect voting system. Like they all have their problems. But we do know for a fact the worst one is first past the post. That's the only like mathematically that's thing. So because it's annoying to see them say, oh, well, people do strategic voting in this. And I'm like, we can't even have more than two candidates in an election because the spoiler effect and a first past the post. And you're complaining about people strategically voting on their third choice. It's kind of like that's a dumb argument. But they do kind of have a point that when you say this person got majority elected by the majority, but really, and they have examples of articles in here where some studies where half the votes were thrown out. So they actually got 25% of the people that participated in the election. That's the majority that they got.
Plurality, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, but the proponents of ranked choice voting say that you always have a majority. But that's not technically correct. Because it's only the people that rank the final candidates in the final simulated election. But if you require everyone to rank everyone,
majority, you need everyone to agree. Anyway, sorry, I don't know how much you want to go into like actually arguing the points or mapping the argument, but
yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing is you kind of Yeah, not a recount, but a runoff. Thanks, Steve, from a while back. I was just reading through the comments. Using the wrong term there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if I should jump in on the mic or not. I just wanted to see the
Always feel.
process that you're working through, just because I was super curious. I read the description of this stream and I was just very curious about what the argument mapping software is like, and it
Yeah.
looks really, really powerful is my initial response.
Now this software is just a general whiteboarding tool. So it's not meant for this, but since this is what I create plugins for Miro as my day job, so I know how to use the tool and I could build one. Uh,
Yeah, that's pretty convenient.
but that's the only reason why I chose it. Carl's working on one, and there were several out there I was looking at earlier this week, but none of them had all the features I really needed. Yeah, so this kind of sticky wicket of figuring out how to. So yeah, I mean, in theory, I should probably I do keep getting distracted, just like Carl was saying. I get distracted between the arguments I want to make in the final debate and the arguments that these people are making. And really the goal is to just map out an argument tree of their arguments, good or bad. So I really should kind of ignore that. Although in some cases, it's hard to figure out which of their sentences to pull as a quote, or how do you want to slightly rewrite it towards still recognizable. But also, and then it's also a constant thing of being frustrated at there, because they say that, half the people didn't rank everyone. And then you find out later on that in 3 of those studies, the ranked choice voting system only allowed you to rank 3. So if they had 5 people in there, you're not allowed to rank everyone. So it's like, well, let's not use a stupid broken system as an example on whether a correctly made system would work. But that's an argument we need to make to it. So first I need to like find the line in here that quotes. And like most people are thinking in and learn from stories, and so this is kind of written story, and then I'm trying to find a quote or rewrite or logical summary. And some of their arguments I just don't understand. Like ranked choice obscures true debates.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah, driven dialogues between among candidates. Okay, so this is how they explain it, which sounds weird. You never really know who you will be running against, whom in the final vote count will with ranked choice vote. So somehow they're saying the candidates can't have a good debate because in the end it's probably going to be a choice between 2 candidates, although that's not true in ranked choice voting. Someone could still get a majority with a whole field of candidates. Yeah, I don't know why they think people are so stupid that are like, I don't need to know who the final if I rank everyone, I don't care what the last one is. And if I don't rank them all, then that means I don't care who the last one is.
Yeah, it's
It
like
says
a negative poll. It's like absence says something. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are some voting systems to where you just say these are the candidates I approve of, and you don't rank them, or there's an option to say disapprove.
Yeah,
Then if
that would be great.
But then I don't know how would you include that if you could, because still
well,
in
you'd have to vote for everyone then, and just put them below the neutral ones you have.
yeah,
Like if you're neutral about them, you have to just rank them all.
I would almost like forcing people to vote for everyone, because then even if people don't know who they are and they're just putting them randomly in there and you're having them auto sorted, then statistically those should even out. And then you won't get this problem to where the last 2 people, only 10% of the people ranked. And then it's 5% of the people whose votes count.
I think one thing, back to your initial question, I don't want to be a party pooper, but back to your question, Bentley, about like what's the function of doing the argument mapping, is maybe so that you can nail down an argument opposed to whatever they're saying, or you can come up with a better one. But both of those would require the map first And the map would have to be like, I think you said earlier, in these very like frustrating terms, because I mean, it is incomplete. If you wanted to map it out and say, here's the claim, here's the explanation for that claim, here's the evidence for that claim, then you're going to be very frustrated going through this because a lot of it is going to be assumed it's going to be in there, or they're assuming the reader is going to put it in there. But I think that could be marked on the map too, couldn't it? Because the function of the map would be like, let me get a look at the superstructure of this argument in this piece, and now I'm in a better position to write or compose a counter argument or write a concurring argument that you think is a better argument for ranked choice voting than they're making.
Yeah, and that's why I realized when I was trying to just create an argument map, like looking at a pro article and the Karn article and taking my own thing and trying to build an argument map,
Yeah.
my brain just freezes up.
Yeah, it's
So I
like
decided-
sampling someone's
Yeah.
recipe while reading in a recipe book while making your own and cooking it and writing it down. But don't worry, this is something we all fall into in doing this kind of work. It's like you want to kind of get to the point of being like, oh, that's such a bad argument. I can make a better one. And it's
So
very frustrating.
I'm trying to say that I'm trying to see whether I even have this, because they have this ranked choice obscures true debates. Oh,
I don't understand why
okay, so
that's in
it's here.
italics. Like, I don't understand why that's set in italics. Like, why is that?
I think
Is
that's
that
just one of their main points from up top. So they're kind of just calling out, this is our,
oh, okay.
that's their talking point, really, is what it is.
Yeah. I guess that's the
But it's
the
such a bad
thesis.
talking point.
Yeah, it's the thesis, but then they don't really even discuss debates and who I mean, there's just too much, it's too vague.
It also seems similar to the first one you have there on the left, disconnects elections from issues. If it's obscuring issue-driven dialogue,
Right.
maybe that's their justification for how it disconnects selections from issues.
No, that's a good point. I mean, maybe the proper, that's another thing about mind mapping. Can I easily move? Oh no, I can't use Miro's mind mapping, it turns out.
Wait, what if you, wait, let's see.
I'm teaching online this semester quite a bit, and I think
Oh, you
Miro
can
looks
drag
like
it onto the other one, I think, like this. You can
Oh,
just drag the
look
node
at that.
itself.
that's great. This looks like it'd be great for teaching online. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, and there's quite a few teachers using this.
Although, wait,
So-
is this
but
backwards?
do we think that that's actually
Well, they definitely feel related. It's just this other one says true debates and issue-driven dialogues.
and we could break that up into two if the problem is that they're making two claims in one sentence. And this is where I get kind of stuck. And part of it is they chose language that's supposed to be emotionally triggering, but isn't
Yeah.
the clearest.
I think if I were making this, I would probably just remove one of these and then look in the article for where it like just like explains it, and then add more from that. Hopefully, if they have justification. I am like, trying to figure out how it reduces discussion around issues in the first place.
I mean, it looks like they're implying you'll never really know. Oh, and actually, you'll never really know who'll be running against whom in the final vote count with ranked choice. So that's almost, it seems to
Like
me
a
that they're
justification for it.
loosely.
Yeah, I guess so.
So
So you could have a, yeah, let's see. Disconnects because
and I have to open up another. Unfortunately, this is a photo in Miro as rather than text. So to copy the text, I have to also open up the document, another window, which is linked to from up here. So yeah, so I guess
it's just it does, yeah, so that should be an argument, but then as a critique to that, I don't know, are we going into critiques to that if we're just trying to model what they've said.
I think it'd be good if we tried to focus on just modeling what they said, even though we're gonna have to. I mean, critiquing the fact that they said it in such a convoluted way that I have no idea what they actually mean. But yeah, not the arguments against it. It may be hard to not do that, but I mean that's where my mind goes every time I listen to it. Because my answer to that is, well, who cares? I can still, which is to Carl's point, that's irrelevance, right? It's like, yes, that's true, but that doesn't change how I rank people. Like I can rank things without knowing who the last two people are. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
if we tell them voters to say rank these people, they can do it.
I think it's
The
very
vote will usually
strange.
come out right.
I think it's very strange that they even like talk about who's running against who, because the system is like, okay, there are X candidates, they're all running against each other. And in the voting calculation is when, you might pit people against each other. But there's like, you already know that you're against these like 6 other people, like in the election.
Yeah.
There's not an extra, and maybe this is where they're like leading to, I guess. There's not an extra step where people are voting one at a time. Like between these two people, I want this one, and then we'll wait to see, what the counts are, and if both of them are out, then I have to vote again. No, people know, like people can rank all of them. So it's just anyway, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so that's the thing is
Clearly
that
being triggered by the emotional
Yeah, how can you
and
not be though?
and their choice, yeah, and their choice of logical, and I guess maybe they're phrasing it in a way that strengthens their argument, and that's why it's so frustrating. Because if they just came out and said, "Hey, it's really better to have different runoffs because people understand one against one better than these three," then that's the phrasing of the argument that to me makes sense. But if they phrased it that way, it'd be too simple and too also the reader, it's almost too esoteric or something. That's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. It's almost too abstract of a way of saying it, as opposed to just saying it destroys clarity. That's very concrete. But how it destroys clarity is the abstract piece.
Forces, so they say forces voters to cast ballots in hypothetical future elections. So that's like a critique to, I guess it's a support to it being a bad choice. That like, I guess, or maybe you could say it destroys clarity as the support, and then like a support of that is that voters have to vote in hypothetical future elections.
Yeah, and maybe I just need to like go through their sentence structure and start adding these regardless of whether I understand what they mean, just based on where they are in relation to each other in the document. And this is also something you think, well, they do have semantic tools that could do that, and AI you think would be fairly good at that if you do it in chunks. And then the harder point later on would be either reorganizing their thoughts in a more logical way so that it can be argued against, or just figure out where to put the arguments. Like, I think for a lot of these, we could put, saying that people don't need to or even want to think about these virtual runoffs. They just think of the rank order that they would like the candidates. They don't have to. Now, and somewhere in here, they might say why, once you say that, they're not thinking about it. I don't know if somewhere in here they argue saying that that's a bad thing. Go ahead, Carl.
So I'd say I'm trying to decide, do I talk meta process or like the specific process? Let's talk specific. So for the second or third choice votes, text, I think so. I think I understand their intent. And that text is an introduction to what follows, which is because their basic point, it's one of those setups where you do the semicolon and then you provide the justification after the semicolon. And they like, in order to win, the way I would paraphrase this is the winner of an election in the United States must have a mandate. I think that might be a fair paraphrase. Must, should have a mandate, must. Because they're trying to say
So you're
like,
saying to use that as the claim rather than any of their actual quotes?
my approach is to paraphrase in a way that captures the intent, clarifies, simplifies, and if possible, includes the same words. That's why I left mandate in. And I'm open to, that may not be
Yeah,
the
I
right.
don't. Yeah, I don't
I try-
disagree with any of that. I just haven't understood their arguments well enough to do that. So I think you're doing a good job of. So wait, say what you said again, and I'll put it here for now, and we'll figure out where to put it.
Election winners, is that the right phrase? Election winners in the United States should have a mandate. And then I think
A
sorry,
mandate?
mandate.
Well, mandate's almost more than 50% of mandates, like 80%.
Well, that's a good question as to what they mean by mandate.
A
'Cause
majority.
okay, so we could say majority, yeah, sure.
I was not aware of that meaning. I guess Google agrees as well.
And then I think that then they're saying second or third choice votes do not produce a mandate. I think that's actually an argument in favor of that one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So something like that. And we can further also clean this up. So that's a good, I almost feel like we need to have some way to, it's like, I don't feel like doing it right now, but I almost should link to, and I guess that's what I was doing. Where's the
Oh, and
second?
as a nitpick, I would say what they really mean is second or third choice votes do not produce winners with a majority. It should not matter in America is kind of what's the word? Like it's a truism, or not really a truism, but it's like it's irrelevant. It's what they're trying to say really is that second, do not produce a majority winner.
Yeah, see, I just can't do this without thinking of
I'm
opposing.
not sure if this helps, but the way that I would do it in a class is I would say ranked choice voting is bad because it gives credibility to second and third choice candidates. That erodes confidence in the American government among the citizens. That's kind of the way I would break that argument down.
And
those are the claims that they're making, like in the order that
so
you have
that's you
here.
kind of paraphrasing their claims in a more.
Yeah, so their argument is you shouldn't do it. Why? Because it destroys confidence in the system. Why? Because second and third choice candidates don't have a mandate. Like you're not sure if you voted for them or not. Which I think is a funny thing to be able to say, since we're so used to binary elections. At least if you're all American, I assume you are, but if you're in a parliamentary system, you have a very different situation, right?
I don't have a flag background, but yeah, I'm basically.
Yeah. This is my lecture background. I just didn't turn it off for my online classes.
So wait, let me try and say that one more time. Let me try and get it down as
okay. So you have ranked choice voting is a bad choice. That's good. And then the next one would be the question I would ask is why, and they say because it erodes confidence in the process or the government. Which do you think they're saying?
I think government.
I think they're saying it erodes confidence in the government. Why? Because it's unclear where the second and third choice. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting myself confused now because we want to make it kind of simple, right? So it erodes confidence in the government. There is not a clear mandate. You could just put there's no clear mandate for the elected government or any officials, really, I guess.
To being the second.
Yeah, you could combine those two as well.
And they could
you could also split it up and say, if you wanted to get even deeper, you could say why? Because it gives credibility to second and third choice votes. And so
Okay,
that's the way I would break that down. But this is like,
What, kind of
this,
like here?
no, under there's no clear mandate.
yeah, because I would ask the question, well, why is there no clear mandate? Like I think about it in terms of like having a conversation with the person. And based on the text here, what would their response be? Like if we were sitting down, if they were here in the Zoom call, we say, well, why would that be the case? And they say, oh, because there's no clear mandate. And then we would say, well, what is a mandate? What do you mean by clear mandate? And they say, well, it gives legitimacy to second and third place choices, which, you know, erodes the system, or, you know, that's why it would give no clear, like, that's why it would erode confidence. So it would seem somewhat circular, but what they're doing is creating a story.
Can't go what that,
That's the way I would do it with a class. Like if we were breaking this down in like a debate class or something.
is that line also on your screen, Joel?
Yeah. I don't know what happened there.
Miro has an opinion.
Yeah. So I think
Anyway, I don't know if that's helpful or not for what you
Yeah,
guys
no,
like
that-
your ultimate goal, but I mean, that's what I would do with undergraduates.
yeah, what's helpful with that is that's very helpful. It's also happens to be the exact opposite of the way I'm thinking of a debate, which is good to see, right? Or of the mapping, because for my scoring system to work, it's always like more general to more specific further down, as opposed to why would, I don't know, maybe they are the same thing.
Well, I think
Um,
the bottom one in this case is like the most concrete. Like it's actually talking about the impact of the system, or like the direct impact of the system, and then like the no clear mandate is like a result of that, and then erodes confidence is a result of that. So it's like erodes confidence is like the most, it seems like the most general,
Yeah, I
not
agree.
in specific to me.
Yeah, and this is just from like many years of teaching this stuff, but the advantage of doing it this way is that you can very easily find places that need defense or places where you could attack their argument if you wanted to, because you can look at what's necessary for those claims to support those other claims. You can be like, oh, that's too weak or not well explained, or that's a little bit of a hasty generalization, or that's a little bit too weak on the causal front. You can find all kinds of ways in, but you can also find ways to shore it up if you wanted to make a better argument than they're making.
I think for me, or my initial reaction to this like order is that like like when you put this most specific thing at the top, like I guess general things I feel are more likely to be reused. So like if you put gives legitimacy at the top, then that's a specific thing. You're not really gonna use that again, but like might be different parts of the system that erode confidence, as like eroding confidence being like a general thing, like multiple things could contribute to that. And then like you could just like, I guess in the tree structure, maybe you do prefer putting it this way, but I use like a directed graph structure, so you can have two
Right.
parents for the same child.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. But it also helps you see all kinds of different ways to push back, like in your model does too, which I think is very useful to make sure that we're not getting caught up in what Bentley said, the sort of like over emotional language of like these people are very, very passionate writers.
Right.
You don't want that to make you miss a connecting point.
Joel, I didn't understand your different way of doing it. How would you do it differently?
So if you just flip it, that
Yeah.
then like erodes confidence in the government can be like a support for multiple things being bad, multiple specific things being bad. So, oh God.
Yeah, Joel's way is actually kind of interesting because it would be the approach to say you would reveal the larger problem at the end, the larger impact at the end. So like if I was in the debate, I say, okay, why is it such a bad choice? You'd say, or these authors would say, oh, it's because it gives legitimacy to second or third place choices. And then I would say, well, why is that so bad? You're like, you don't see. Well, the system works on a mandate, and what you eventually would get is eroded confidence from that legitimacy that ranked choice voting provides. That's the way I'm hearing it, Joel. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Um, Yeah, it's something like that. Sorry, I heard like half of it, and
No,
something
that's
like
okay.
half
That's
of
okay.
that. I was just thinking about like something else that might erode confidence here, but
See,
like
this could be a very persuasive structure to the right
something else
audience.
that's bad.
Yeah,
But
I think it's
then,
good. It depends on the audience which one you might go for, because some audience members might like to hear the very direct thing it does first, the most concrete thing first.
personally, I feel like the concrete thing is nice to start with because when you start abstract, it's like then you have all these questions about, oh, I don't understand why that's the case, and you have to
Right.
ask the question before, like you kind of have to like map back, like you go
Yeah.
general to more specific, and then at the specific is when you start to understand, and then you have to go back and be like, oh yeah, okay, it does that because of the specific thing, because of the specific thing, and now I
Right.
understand why I did
And
that,
then it's
as
like,
opposed to like,
oh, yeah, it takes a long time. Oh,
right.
this is, yeah, that is
So
clear. I like it.
does give legitimacy to second or third place choices, I don't know what the right word is, like directly contribute to ranked choice voting is a bad choice? Because that's now, I think I understand
Oh,
this is, but my
I see.
question, like,
Uh,
I feel like we're turning the tree around because a lot of times the way we discover truth is, yeah, generalizing like in this direction, but it's still, in my mind anyway, it's still logically the like A implies B. It's the eroding confidence of the government that should be directly linked to ranked choice voting is a bad choice.
because
But
this
and
one
I don't
isn't
think
really inherently bad.
it's
Like
right or
giving
wrong, but
legitimacy,
hmm?
giving like it erodes confidence in the government is inherently bad. So you know when it's at the top that it's like supporting that it's a bad choice. But give legitimacy to second or third choices doesn't sound inherently bad until you explain why it's inherently
Mhm.
bad. This is
Yeah.
why like my system, I start with like the structure of the problem without going into like supports or critiques or anything. And then like supports and critiques are just added or like scoped to certain parts. So like in my like graph, I would have like uh well, oh my God, I would have something like ranked choice voting allows you to use second or third choices, and
Mhm.
then like a detriment of that would be like no clear majority winner, or there could be no clear majority winner, and then you might like justify that the detriment is like bad because it erodes confidence in the government, and then the argument is like on, well,
Okay.
uh,
Like you're following cause and effect downwards, I think, is how I'm
basically,
thinking.
yeah, cause and effect is like the structure of the problem, and then you can have arguments on like, oh, does this cause that, or like this thing that we said is caused, is it bad or not? And
Mhm.
that's, so the arguments are like scoped to one of those two like contexts, I guess, which I don't know. I'm a fan of having like the cause and effect be explicit because then it's like independent from whether or not the thing is good or bad. It's like it's like easier to be less biased, I guess. Uh, where with the argument tree, it's like you're assuming there's sides to it from the start, but there are like from the argument tree, there are like factual things in it, or well, I don't. I'm kind of like spouting right now, but
Safe space this now.
I think everything that you guys are talking about is super interesting to me. For me, it's a question of audience and what their
Mhm.
preferences are about which direction they're going to hear it. And but then a separate issue would be, okay, I need to be honest about the weakness of each of these claims because no matter what order they come in, someone's going to come for one of them. So I need to think about a defense, and that would be a separate issue for me.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, if you think about the way I think often well-written articles go, they often state conclusions up front to kind of orient you to the goal, and then they dive into specifics to like ground you in like accurate belief. Like, okay, oh yeah, I
Mhm.
see that that's true, and then they lead you back to the conclusions. I think so. They almost go
Right.
down and then back up again to help a human follow that and believe them at the end.
Yeah, but the tree isn't supposed to have like duplicate information in it. So it's like you want to see. I guess the summary is kind of like the first things in the tree, in which case it'd be good to start with a general why it's bad. But then to go more specific, like in the article sense, you would start like all the way specific and then go like, this erodes confidence. Ugh, I don't know, actually. You could go either way. You could say that there's in the article going like to the there's no clear mandate and then to the well, in this article they did that, didn't they? Um,
Yeah, they started with kind of the conclusions and then they back it up with evidence and logic, no matter how bad that evidence and logic is.
Who was the person in our group who was working on this tool that lets you have like side conversations and then you could like wrap it up as a done and then you came back to the main conversation? Does this
I
ring a
think that was
bell?
Q Park.
Yeah,
Paul.
that's right. Okay, yeah, because this kind of reminded me of their thing where you're in the middle of some point and you have a side conversation, which I think that's I didn't play a lot with it, but I think that side conversation would be more linear and like causal, like the back and forth messaging, and you'll have a
Yeah.
conclusion. But then I think you then take the conclusion back into the main thing, and so it's kind of I think it really calls to mind this conversation we're having about which direction to flip things.
Yeah. So I am kind of like noticing sections, which probably would have been good to go over the section headings because they have like tactical gimmickry. So, and there they're talking about how people will feel like they need to game the system even more so than just can game. Clarity, obstruction, disenfranchisement. So that's where they're expanding on the idea of
Your vote not mattering if you didn't vote past 2 or 3 people or something.
and also I guess the confusion of people using it. I don't know. I guess I need to read more in that. And then cautionary examples, that's all evidence. I guess actually that's all evidence. I don't know if that's evidence just for so ballot exhaustion. Maybe we need to like list out the headings better. So rigging the system is still kind of part of the summary. Ballot exhaustion is one of their downsides of the system. Cautionary examples are evidence, I assume, for ballot exhaustion, unless they're like putting in some evidence for later problems too. I think both. Clarity, obstruction, and disenfranchisement. So that's where we dig in further to figure out what they meant by obscures true debates. And then tactical gimmickry is the thing, and then their solution is their alternate proposal. And then birds of a feather is where they crap on other people a little more. Oh gosh. So it's almost like looking at the larger structure, it's almost like they have 3 main points: ballot exhaustion, clarity, obstruction, disenfranchisement, and tactical gimmickry. And it's interesting that they talk about disenfranchisement along in the clarity thing, because you could also ballot exhaustion, I think they also make claims has disenfranchisement, and also I guess they don't make the claim of that gimmickry does. It's like the whole thing is disenfranchisement. So I'm almost thinking, is that their actual structure? Are those the 3 main points?
To put at the top of the tree.
Yeah. And as far as like which way to go is like general, specific like that. When you're doing well, no, I guess it's just display. When you're scoring the system, you make, in my scoring system, you're making claims and then you're pro-conning them. So you have to kind of be general at the top and specific at the bottom. And another kind of benefit with the scoring system is, I think, although maybe it's just different ways of phrasing the same thing, is that you kind of like want to open up the main debate and look at the broad categories and look at the scores on those. And then if you agree with the scoring intuitively, you can ignore those branches of the tree. and then only dig into the ones that you disagree with, which if it was a whole bunch of like evidential claims at the bottom, but I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about that wrong now that I'm thinking through it. Maybe that's just kind of how you phrase it. So I guess what I'm feeling right now is I almost want to just have another one and just say, oops,
The three.
yeah, those kind of three things.
I think that's reasonable.
Although one of their main points, I don't know, maybe I just need to list out in no order, just boxes spread out on the sheet, what we think their main points are. And I think Steve did a really good job of, it erodes confidence in government. But then again, that's none of the 3 points that I just said, right?
Right. It might be a sub point. I don't know. It might be
Well, no,
good
but
to like
you may be
to,
right. It's just not
yeah.
in the structure of the document.
Yeah, it might. I like your suggestion of just kind of like, let's type out all the claims and the support we can find for those claims and just kind of have like a word bank of or an argument bank of claims, and then we can try to figure out how to put it in the order they put it in. Because I don't know if the order is terribly important outside of a rhetorical point of view, if you know what I'm saying. But like from like the data point of view, or seeing what arguments are in this article, I mean, I don't know. I mean, from my point of view as a rhetorician, it's very important, but this might not be a rhetorical exercise. This is maybe doing something else.
Yeah, I'd almost say that we're de-rhetoricizing.
Right. So if you're trying to collect and say, here's the claims, we have a sense of what a claim looks like. Here are the claims. We have a sense of what evidence or support looks like. Here's what counts as that. Here's everything we found. Here's the order that we find it going in. Here's the superior order. Then you kind of have like a 4-stage kind of process, I guess. If I listed 4, I think.
And I think that's what Jamie does in the Society Library. Like they take a spreadsheet and they just have someone identify all the claims, boom, and then they dedupe them. And then they figure out kind of better wording, and then they kind of treify them where they figure out, oh, this claim they're trying to support this claim intentionally. And then later you get to the whole problem was, oh, they're making this claim and they're supporting 3 different ideas. So then is that above the other ones or below? So yeah, I think rather than doing it, maybe a tree is premature. And I could either just do them as separate bubbles where I just take each claim and put it in a bubble. But now I'm thinking I might even want to just do a spreadsheet.
Yeah, it might take a couple of tries. I mean, I like what you have here. I don't think there's anything wrong with it from my point of view, but I do think it's like a first draft. And I think when you're done with it, you'll be like, this is good, but it's not what I wanted, or this is what I wanted, but it's not good, or, some combination. And then you might say, well, in the second draft, how would I avoid the frustrations I see with this tree? Then you can kind of play around with it. I signed up for an educator account with Miro. This is great. I'm going to use this when I record my lectures for the week tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
They have some great videos on how to use it as a teacher too, so I might send you some of those. And I build plugins, so if you wanted a specialized tool, not that
That's so cool.
lots of educators out there, but
Yeah, we'll have to see. I got to play with it and see, but I think it's exactly what I want, because I don't like teaching with PowerPoint. I usually use Word and just type. That's not good. I'd rather just like write on the board, because I'm
one
old
thing you
school.
want to do to kind of have it be kind of this is off topic, but you want to figure out how to use frames, because you can put them in here, and then they have things where you can click a button, it'll zoom into that frame. So it's kind of like PowerPoint in that way, but then you can move things around in a more visually appealing way.
Great.
So anyways.
Sorry to throw you off the topic there.
Yeah, don't get me started on it.
Well, I'm kind of, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not interested in the UX around good debate presentation or argument mapping. So
Mhm.
Yeah, we're almost at the end of our 2 hours. So I think I am going to go back and just make a spreadsheet and copy the claims. Anything that looks like a claim, in a spreadsheet.
I also would like to myself just like put it into my. I haven't really been like putting it into my tool as we've been going because it's hard enough to just like figure out what the arguments are. So I would like to put it into my tool and like, which means I'll be like mapping out the causes and effects separately from like specific supports and critiques, I guess. And I'll be curious to see how that turns out.
Yeah, but I really appreciated having different viewpoints when trying to do this.
It's a tough thing. There's a whole body of scholarly literature called argument. It's a Dutch practice. It's called argument. What's the name? Like reconfiguration, or they try to rewrite the arguments in the public reconstruction, argument reconstruction. That's what it is. And there's so much written about it out there. And it's still something that people are like, I don't know how much, I don't know how ethical it is to take that much liberty with somebody's claim, but you know, their tools don't work unless it fits exactly the way they want it to be able to say something about it in their toolkit, you know. So, but there's a lot of stuff to read about argument reconstruction.
Wow, I had not heard of that, and I appreciate learning about that.
Yeah, the primary guy is a Dutch guy, Franz von Emeren. You can Google him, and then there should be a lot of stuff. But I can put in Discord a couple of. I can go and steal some scholarly papers and pop them in there if you want to read the stuff.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Because that might. I don't know if it would be helpful because I don't know if they're up to what you guys are up to. But I do think there are points where it crosses over.
I think it's been helpful in general. I've looked at those, and for me, it kind of reminds me of a lot of what I like. ArgTech, I think, is kind of built on that. But I do think they fall into this thing where they're trying to over classify everything. And so it gets even kind of like more convoluted because like, oh, is this an and or a but, or is this, you know?
Yeah, right. Is this a two proposition?
Yeah, and it's
modified
just
two proposition claim or whatever.
Does it support or does it oppose? Let's start from there. But I think it's good. It's good for the people in this group to be familiar with that history.
What was the two proposition thing you were just talking about?
Yeah, there's like a like when you look at a proposition that people have agreed to disagree about, then you have to classify it as whether or not there's one choice or two, and whether or not it's complex or simple. It's been a long time since I've taught or looked at this stuff, but they kind of have thought about every kind of disagreement imaginable because they see the point of, for lack of a better word, argument mapping as to resolve differences of opinion. Now they stay pretty broad on what that means, but it's just sort of like at the basic level, it doesn't mean complete agreement with each other, but that we can move on. So we can resolve differences of opinion that maybe might shut down our working relationship or we can't get past our disagreement. So they've developed these tools to try to like resolve differences of opinion is basically, that's just what they say is their goal with their work.
Yeah, if you could share what you think would be good introductions or that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And that's also Joel and Carl. You know, when I'm talking about like my system isn't going to do anything except for this, and the only like big thing I brought in was the scoring, because that's the actual theory I'm testing. Everything else in my system is just, so that's all I'm working on is the score. Like that thing is like I've narrowed it down to just debates that are Boolean, yes, no. So it's not even like, oh, we have two proposals. It's like we have a proposal and it's yes or no. So I've narrowed the scope of what I will put this in. It has to be phrased as a true false statement just to make the complexity of the system and the process manageable at the start. And then my hope is later I could handle something more like Joel's where there's multiple propositions trying to solve a problem. But I'm working at the atomic smallest unit first. That's how I get around. So a lot of those things don't really apply because they're working up here and I'm just like, what's a claim? Or what am I going to say a claim is? Not what a claims are. What's my
Right.
definition of claim?
Yeah, now you sound like a rhetorician. This is good. I like it.
And Joel and Carr, I don't know if y'all have seen Steve's Discord channel too.
No.
You're
Um,
welcome to join. I
you
can send
wanna
you invites. It's
Yeah. Pimp that, and you know, you're not doing your podcast as much, but you're still doing your Substack.
I'm doing
Or
I
YouTube.
have a button down. I switched to button down just because I
Oh,
like
that's
it
right.
better. But I'm doing that. But what I've been really doing that I like a lot is making these YouTube videos about political speech and stuff, and I get a lot of hate, and it's very funny what people say, and I'm enjoying that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I haven't seen your one about the last debate yet, so it's in my queue.
Yeah,
So I'll send you
it's
some.
very meta. I didn't find a lot in there worth talking about, sadly. So
So
I just kind of went meta.
is it your normal rant about the political debates? Because I can skip it.
It might be. It's a little bit more. I'm just like when they're talking about these debates, they're begging the question, what is a debate?
Yeah.
How would we know that we're involved in a debate? Like everyone assumes this is a debate. Okay, based on what? Because you called it that?
Yeah.
That's not good enough. That's kind of what it's about.
I'll send you some hate comments.
Thank you. Thank you. What my Joe Biden debate video got picked up by a gaming community of this game called Rust. I don't know what it is and everything, but then they were like talking about Rust in the comments, and there's like 1,000 comments of them talking about how they're going to own each other. It's so strange.
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
So Carl,
I
you
was
want to
just
talk
I just
about
rolled with
now?
it.
Oh, I guess that's an email newsletter service, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
How do I
Yeah, it's
sign up?
just like Substack.
How do you spell that? Domain or
button down,
Oh, I
button
can put it
down.
in the
DO.
I'll put
Yeah,
my
yeah.
link in the chat. Let me make sure I get it correctly.
And then your YouTube, am I you no, I'm not muted. Is it your YouTube? I'm seeing like stuff from a year ago. Where's that one you were just talking about the American or debate?
It should be the
I
most
found
recent.
it's Professor Steve Lano, PhD is the name of the YouTube channel, and
Oh,
it
no.
just I just YouTube searched Steve Lano and it found it first thing.
But do you have stuff from like everything I see here is 1 or 2 years ago?
If you
It
go to
should be showing
videos,
something more recent. Maybe my organization needs help.
I don't know.
I mean, it works for me. Carl, you're looking at the channel like at Steve Lano. That's
Yeah, sorry. This is I feel like this is my fault. I just
Nah.
used
we can
Oh yeah,
talk.
that's all old stuff.
do I go to
That's the
videos?
yeah, click videos.
Oh, okay.
There you
Oh,
go.
2 days. Okay, great. Sorry. Sense.
I have a lot of random stuff in there too.
Sounds fun.
I'm obsessed with time lapse videos, so they're in there too.
Cool.
Well, I'm ready to go ahead and shut this down, I think, a little early. Get people back their Fridays, but I really do appreciate having other minds to bump it up against. And
This
then
is very cool. Thanks for doing this.
yeah, and if anyone has any topics they want to do, or if you're ready for a second round of this, I think I'll play around alone a little bit, and then when my brain breaks, I might propose another one. But feel free to either create an event in the system or just post and say, hey, does anyone else want to try to do that with this or use this new tool and try and do it? So I think these would be fun, but we'll just do them as people suggest and we find interest.
Sounds good.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk whenever the next CDL general meeting is.
Yep. Nice seeing you guys.
Yeah, good to
Uh,
Bye.